so we need to take all votes verbally. I'll begin with asking for a motion to approve the agenda. So moved by Mr. Tisdale. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nail. Discussion? There being none, we'll call for the question. We'll begin. Councilman?
One possibility I see.
You got to announce your name and your vote.
What we voting on? Oh,
Approve the agenda.
pro Jam. Gray, yeah.
All right. Mr. Marshall?
Marshall, yeah.
Mr. Neal?
Nail, yes.
Mr. Creel?
Creel, yes. Tisdale, yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Shoemaker, yes.
All right. Agenda's approved. Mayor's report?
No report.
Council reports?
No report.
No report.
No report. No report.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Council report.
No report.
No, I have no report as well. Public comments, total allotted times 45 minutes, 3 minutes per individual. Speak on any topic you choose. So we'll go ahead and open that up. Anybody want to make any public comments? All right, there being no public comments, citizen comments is closed. Policy agenda?
Subject matter of the meeting is to discuss a potential millage increase and for related purposes.
All right, Mayor, you want to provide some opening remarks?
Well, yes, in the budget exercise, and I think talking with some of the members of the council, the premise on this year's budget was to have as close as we possibly can revenues equal expenses. And we went through a number of exercises, and we continue to push that as a goal, instead of maybe eating into reserves to make up the difference between revenues and expenses. This was what we reported at the last part of the meeting last night, was, or yesterday afternoon, I guess the budget workshop. In talking about, millage came up as far as possibilities that what can be done this year to make that wish of the council to come closer to reality. And in essence, the 3% mill would generate about $2 million worth of revenue, which would reduce that difference between revenues and expenses. It's a possibility that can be done, and I believe that would be implemented in the October 1 bills that would go out based on the FY25 millage, assessed values. So that would yield, about $2 million in additional revenue and reduce that delta. And so that's a possibility. I had mentioned before in efforts, and we looked at other avenues of food and beverage option, and as well as an occupancy, which Biloxi has no occupancy tax on any of the hotel rooms. Those all would require a unanimous vote of the council, and then subject to I think local and private committee at the legislature, and then result in a referendum that the people would pass at 60% in order to move that forward. The immediate action, while I think that the 3 mills is right at the limit, at least in my estimation, of the restrictions on how much you can do in 1 year for city millage. We're at 30.1 mil. That would result in 33.1 mil if this is approved. But bottom line, there's a need for this meeting to approve the request and advertise that 3 mil to the public. And the September 2nd meeting would be the public hearing for the final trigger to be pulled. This advertisement that we're talking about is not, I think, would not to exceed that 3 mils is what we would advertise.
Thank you, Mayor.
Question.
Let me begin with Mr. Shoemaker, since he doesn't have the advantage of raising his hand or whatever. Mr. Shoemaker, any comments? All right, Mr. Creel.
So, do you need council approval to advertise either way?
We believe, yes.
So last year when you advertised no, did you need council approval?
I think we did have council approval to advertise that there would not be an increase in millage.
No, we've never, we just generally just publish no millage, so it's just been published that way. If there's no increase, it's really, we still publish there's not going to be an increase. And whether it's required or not may be debatable, but I think best practice would be to have a consensus of,
Okay, so,
to advertise. This is not putting the millage increase into effect. This is kind of like the water bill yesterday, or the garbage fee yesterday. We had to give a notice of intent that it was happening, and then we're going to publish that. So
This is the notice of intent.
this is to do the notice, and then the public meeting would be September 2nd. It's a night meeting, 5:30, and then the final budget would be approved the following week.
thank you.
All right. Mr. Gray? Mr. Marshall?
I'm gonna follow Mr. Tisdale.
You going to follow him?
Yes.
Where are you going to follow him to?
I hope to a good place.
Okay, all right. Mr. Dale? Mr. Tisdale, go ahead and lead.
Okay. I have a number of questions and a few comments because I think there's still some information we need from the administration. But first of all, before I forget, Chief Miller, you don't need to come up or anything. It's just, I remember we had talked about retirement cost, and this council had mentioned it, retirement cost or budget for retired canines. And you and I had talked and said, well, there'd have to be some restrictions on that. I think it was that currently we have, I think you said 3 retired canines, and that your thoughts were that the officer must remain with that dog and remain with the police department. Are you able to absorb that cost? And it would be up to $800 per year per dog for veterinarian expenses, and that would be capped at 6 years. Are you able to work that into your budget?
It's going to be higher. I'm not saying that you do, but
I understand. Okay, thank you, Chief. So a couple of questions for the administration here. Are we looking at any new capital projects in fiscal year 2026?
At this point, no. One on the radar based on the certification of Old Mesa and the $5 million or so estimate at the Sherman Canaan Port. But that wouldn't be our budget, it would be Port Authority's budget.
The port budget, but there are no capital projects.
Other than the 2 hopes for the 500,000 for the Boone Street and 500,000 for the Oak Street Pier. Those are the 2 things that we hadn't pulled the trigger on yet. We're ready to advertise. Is that not right? Okay. The things, especially the Pops Ferry extension, fixing of the bridge. Those are 2 capital projects that are highest on the radar.
All right, so we're talking about, and the reason is I know if we're looking at millage, then I want to have a clear understanding of what kind of cost or where this money would be going. So based on what you said, there'd be a $500,000 local match for the Oak Street. Okay, so there's no match there. All right, no match for Coon Street. All right, and you said there are no capital projects at this time. All right, so we'll
finish the things that we're in the middle of, but the Pops Ferry still hangs,
Well, that's okay. I'm talking about new capital projects that haven't been created yet. You're not looking to create any more this next year, or you're looking at the Pops Ferry Bridge.
Combination, right? Both of them would need to be high on the list. Of course, keeping the bridge open during the storm season and boats running into things.
Right, is there an anticipated cost on that?
How far we would, years away from actually construction, you think, on the rendering of the bridge? So it won't be any this year in our 26 budget.
Okay. So we're not looking at any, all right, thank you. We're going to be looking at pursuing any general obligation bonds or limited obligation bonds.
Primarily to do things, you know, to remove instead of capital projects, things that are wearing out over the last 10 years. And I think we were looking at generators, actually roof repair, and some projects that were identified like the brick house and some of those things that are breaking down. But long-term, that bond is to finish some long-term needs and some vehicles too. I think we got a few dump trucks in it. Some dump trucks that will have at least a 5-year, 10-year plan. But again, the idea is spread that expense over multiple years for the life of those things that we're buying.
So if we're looking at bonds, what amount are we looking at? What, 10 million?
Tim, what was it? 10 million each, right? 10.3.
All right, and they're not for any specific projects, they're just to replace.
Things that we would buy in capital, that we have to budget it each year in capital, you know, those
All
things.
right, so it'd be capital items, more or less.
Year, multi-life cycle.
Okay. Do we know what the note or estimate what the note would be?
Well, given we're playing games again or guessing, okay, and we, like we did before, we've been very, very fortunate, and folks from Raymond James and Jason, Jane, I think we intended to play that game like we did before. We could borrow it today if we wanted to borrow it at 4, given our rating and so forth, but I think we'll do better by the time we pull the trigger. Some of the engineering that would be going on and some of the things we got to order, like a fire truck, you know, those things, we'll pull the trigger later than sooner, because I think we could drop as much as 1.5 points by the time we borrow that money.
So what do you estimate the note to be? A range would be fine.
Interest only would be about $393,000 interest, $400,000 each one.
Just in interest?
But over 20 years.
All right.
But at least the first year would be, you know, I think we're very confident that we can, the interest only in this FY26 would be our debt service.
All right, where do we project our ending fund balance at the end of this fiscal year?
Even? Fund balance, 12.5 fund balance unrestricted?
12 and a half, thank you.
You know, let me ask too. I think, you know, in the audit last year, it was mentioned, and I'm not sure what accounts make that up, but it was mentioned 26 unrestricted fund balance was the figure. I think when we add everything else, that may approach that too. At the ABL, you remember when ABL reported that we had 26 million in unrestricted fund balance? Means you know, it would be to use that, it would be council approval to dig into that.
All right.
But the idea, and some of the strengths of our capital position is that we do have enough fund balance in order to sustain a 3-month, you know.
Right.
And I think that some of the purposes of trying to make revenues equal expenses is why we're doing this thing, and you know, the millage and any other mechanism that we can to increase the revenues. Business, you know, goes to bottom line, revenues and expenses, positive in that you add to the bottom line.
But to go back to what Diana said, in the general fund, we're looking at an ending fund or projected ending fund balance in fiscal year 2025, this current year, 12 and a half. Right? Yes. Okay, Mayor, you mentioned 26 million now.
Other funds. Other funds that.
And other funds, but those other.
Across all funds.
Right. But is any of that 26 million restricted, or it's all spoken for?
Correct, unrestricted. That's what was mentioned in the audit, and we're going to follow up those accounts and see if they're still unrestricted and what the amount is. But we don't have that AVL was the one that reported it and audited it at the beginning of last year. So we'll get that number exactly. But, this whole exercise is not to go dig into it if we can through other mechanisms.
All right, but the general public, what they just heard was there's $26 million that we don't want to touch over here.
No, it's fund balance. I didn't say we didn't want to touch it. That's what fund balance is for, given the right play. But you had 12, which you reported. That's in the general fund. We've got 38 funds, Diana? Something like that.
You have a number of funds. So how many of those funds could you reduce that fund balance and move to the general fund?
Well, there's a number of things that we could do, and it's been hanging around since before I became mayor. There's the general fund funded capital projects. I'm talking about Katrina recovery. 4 is owed to the general fund from capital projects. I'm talking about Katrina-related stuff. So if we were to square that up some kind of way, that's $4 million right to the general fund. But we haven't done that. We've been sitting on it. We've done it a little bit at a time, Diana. Done what we could to this point. But that's $4 million. This is before all of us, that was there. It's just a hanging there. It's do to, do from. So, I mean, we could be not creative, but once we see a way, finishing up these capital projects, the general fund is owed 4.3, I think, last number. I can't memorize that number. But anyway, there's a number of things that we could, drill down on what we could do. But there are a number of ways to get that unrestricted up, so we have a little bit better position.
Okay, I'm
Don't understand.
a bit confused here, if I understood you correctly. So there's money out there that is not really restricted, where it's in other funds, it's not in the general fund. We could move some of that money into the general fund, and you said there's about 26 million out there, but we need some of that for some projects or FEMA-related or something, because I heard you mention FEMA. But I mean, the first question that occurs to me is, if we're going to ask for about $2 million, and possibly for a millage increase, but we have $4 million over here we could move from some of these funds into the general fund. If you could clear that up, that's...
It's an accounting move, not dollars, okay? This is $4 million that was owed to the general fund because they chose to let the general fund pay the bills. You remember where we were when I became mayor? $17 million was owed to us.
Right.
By the federal government, and yet the construction kept on. That's why we borrowed $11 million, but that $4 million is a residual of trying to whittle down who owes us what. There's a number of trap funds, that they have chose not to, and Walt's here, he kind of, well, he was here, but bottom line, if we recover some of that and save some of these trap funds, we can actually reduce that. That would add to the cash. We don't have the cash. This would just be an increase. If you wanted to increase fund balance, that's not cash though. Move that $4 million to the general fund, that kicks the fund balance up to 16 from 12, if those numbers are correct.
Okay.
So it's an accounting entry. It's a do to, do from. That adds to the fund balance. Right now, it's in fund balance in the 30 fund, which is the capital projects.
Okay.
About that.
Are you unconfused now?
Huh?
Are you unconfused?
So, deconfused. So,
Your question was related to fund balance, and that's what I'm, those are the things that increase fund balance.
all right, so then,
Cash, not cash.
then what are we projecting at this point? What are we projecting as a fund balance at the end of fiscal year 2026?
Well,
I mean, there are a number of scenarios here, so I get that, but,
use our expense to equal revenues, okay, the fund balance should be the same.
right?
If that's what we would project if we do the things that we're talking about doing.
Right.
We got a couple of exercises. This was a Christmas wish to all of the departments, and y'all heard each department. Well, there's some further analysis of that. So, I mean, again, this whole exercise is, you and I talked about revenues that got to equal expenses this year. That never has been the case. You use some of the fund balance in order to make those things. But if revenues equal expenses, okay, actual, then there's no change of fund balance.
Right, and that's what we're shooting for. I mean,
Well, what we're shooting for, based on your wish, revenues to equal expenses. That's what we're shooting for. But, you know, again, in business, if you got good credit, and there should not be, and you understand what the play is at the end of this year, or maybe the beginning of next year, you know, to me, if you look around, you got good credit, and you don't have, you know, enough cash when in an emergency, it can be prudent to use some of that fund balance. Did I confuse you there? The goal was to match revenues with expenses.
right, because in the past, we've always had expenses that exceeded revenues by several $1 million, and the question always came up from the public, why do you guys have a deficit budget?
Again, respectfully, it's not a deficit budget, it's use of the resources that you have. Because it would, you know, if you're playing, because we don't know what the end of this year is going to be till November and maybe December of this year. But that year-to-date gain or loss was always comes out favorable to us, and we don't know that for sure. So that's the way I've looked at it since 2015. And again, there's some things that that can, if we were fully accruable, you know, some of the things that were modified, right, Diana? As far as accrual basis on a lot of things, cash basis on a lot of things, accounting method. But anyway, I'm confident that there's a wise use of the things that we're talking about as far as capital, or spreading capital across a multi-years match the life cycle, as well as use of fund balance when necessary. If it's $2 or $3 million, you know, after we've cut everything that we can and yet provide the outstanding service that we had in police and fire and public works, that it's the wise thing to do. Sum up, I think this is pretty much the one thing we can do to close that delta, yet, and I can see when that this could be a temporary thing. And there's a couple other mechanisms that are in play that we don't know, we can't book it. We can book this and still have, you know, keep that AA credit rating and keep that fund balance to meet any 3 months worth of, that's I think the goal. So this will put us in a position to do that.
All right, so where can we cut expenses?
We've been doing it, you know, there's a number of items that we're talking about, overtime. Can't cut some things we want. I think the biggest challenge is that we need 140 or so sworn people in the police department. We need so many people per equipment in the fire department. That's the bottom line. You know, and 70% of your ball game of the expenses is related to personnel. 600 or so personnel. We've increased over about $2.6 million in wages and salary over the last 2 years. And you know, you don't want to go backwards. You want to go forwards, and even when we can, we want to be able to, you know, increase those. We've always struggled to keep the vacancies at a minimum by hiring people. And, you know, if you wanted to remove some budgeted positions, that's a way to cut the so-called guess of revenues and expenses.
Right, but some of those positions have never been filled, and it's, you budget them to fill them. We could still designate those as positions and just not fund them, with the understanding that if for some reason.
I don't know from the financial standpoint what that would do, what that impact would be doing. If we say, we have an understanding, we can kick it up to them out. But I think the finance people look at budgeted positions.
I understand that, but then at the end of the year, that leaves some money on the table.
Well, it leaves budget on the table, not money on the table. You know, if your revenues are year to date, or that's what leaves money on the table.
Right.
Revenues actually exceed the expenses that you really actually do.
Okay, so I have a couple of thoughts on cutting expenses. You know, we had moved personnel out of the third floor to the federal building, and also the accounting folks out of the old library. I don't recall what contractually what we're paying for the federal building over there, that third floor, but whatever that is, that amount could be saved by putting the personnel department back on the third floor here and accounting back over there in the old library.
I don't think the challenges we had at the library were anticipated to generate $4,000 a month, and to do some of the improvements with the AC. We had a problem over there.
I remember.
It was a challenge. I think over there, we're at about $6 a square foot, including and air conditioning, the whole 9 yards. So I mean, that's the best deal in town over there. And we were hopeful that there'll be some tenants in this building, as well as some surplus land. Okay, we could see how many properties we have, like 20 that we cut. Get that. We don't need to be spending $25,000-$30,000 a year on property we don't really need. May be able to pick up, but you reduce that expense, because we'll write ourselves up if we don't cut the grass. So, but surplus everything we can. But the old water department is certainly one. On Main Street by the railroad, and we can surplus a number of things. We talked about the bond house, and there's a number of things that would reduce our liability, because if you have termites or you have AC, we have AC all the time, at the Seafood Industry Museum, at the ball field, and that reduces our exposure to use real dollars to have to fix this thing up.
Right. Another thought is that we could have a single director over engineering and public works. That would save us.
We'll talk about that. We have some understanding of just what it's possible, but we've got some creative things that we need to consider.
All right. And the other thing is, and this is just something at the time I had concerns about. In resolution, I think it was 390-23, which involves Save Our Sound funding. We have an agreement where Harrison County funds them funds that entity, as does the city, at $250,000 a year.
Up to, yeah.
All right, and then at the end of the year, there's a rollover with the unused balance, and at the time, and I still prefer that if they need to come back, I prefer they come back to us annually, but that requires another resolution. I don't know that I'm against that. It's just to give them $250,000 annually, and it rolls over and accumulates without them having to come back to us. Kenny, you probably know more about that than I do. I think I'm accurate in saying that. I would rather that...
We've never spent that money. It's just been accruing in case we get into, expert lawsuit. Is that not right?
No, I think of what we originally allocated, we probably have reimbursed, when the county pays it, when we pay our share, it's probably been, I think to date, it's been under 100,000, but I think what you're indicating is technically there's 150 in reserve for future, I guess, the future what they're doing.
Well, whatever is unexpected with that annual whatever it's unexpended with that annual allocation just accumulates, and rather than accumulate, if they spend it and need to have that replenished, I'm a little more comfortable with that. But the fact that they, that we're allocating, and I think we are. You may want to.
No,
right.
I don't think it's not a fresh 250 every year. It's been whatever's been left. That's what we've been rolling over. So whenever that runs out, and I think it's been 2.5, 3 years. So it's been averaging, I guess, about for us 30,000 a year. When that runs out, I would hope that the lawsuits have run out, but if not, they'd have to come back to us.
There's still some figure in this year's FY26 budget for that. 100 or so thousand or 200,000.
I think we've got about 150 left that's in the budget.
Okay, that clarifies some things. Thank you. So, two side notes very quickly. Water and sewer, as I recall, I think my question was, are they above water or underwater? And by all accounts, Diana would know, but they have fund balance. They're run as proprietary entities. And they have to make money just like any other business, and right now, they're on the positive side of the ledger, right? All right, and that's for each department, correct? Water and sewer and the port?
Port is, yeah.
Okay, water and sewer too, though, correct? All right, thank you.
And there's some reimbursement to the general fund for those services. So there's a revenue to the general fund from
Right.
the administrative end, and I'm not sure, it's based on what expenses, the formula on what the allocation from each of those departments to the general fund. Yeah, that's the billing of them.
Okay. All right, so millage. How many mills are we considering?
3.
3 mills. And Peter, if I understood correctly, when we say this, we have to advertise Friday, that means it needs to run in Friday's paper?
Correct.
Okay. So if we can't come to some agreement today, then it may be we have to just keep working on this, or we run out of time, more or less.
Yeah, as I understand it, that's one of the things that Gulfport, they were going to go from 34 mills to 36 mills to equal what the county is doing. The county does 36.
Correct.
So they were going to go 34 to 36. They couldn't get that new agenda passed, and so they're meeting today. They're just going to do the docket of claims. They said anything else is off the table, so they will not make a Friday publication deadline.
Okay. And we said a mill generates approximately $793,000. And the cost to a homeowner is $10 per 100,000 of assessed value per year. At some point, Mayor, I'd like a breakdown. You may have, Diana may be able to tell us this, but I would assume with this $2 million, this 3 mil, if we go ahead and roll with that, specifically, what would it go to? Now, you give me some idea, I think, would that pay for the general obligation bonds?
No,
At 10 years?
The idea is get that as a revenue to it goes to fund balance. You go to the revenue and fund balance, and you spread the revenues across as you designate what you're spending. I mean, just add to the fund balance as a proceed of loans, it hits the revenues.
All right, so if it's $2 million that goes into fund balance, if my constituents, because I have a ward meeting September 8th, so if my constituents ask, Mayor, where's this money going? Just to say in the general fund.
The answer to that, about 70% of that is related to our salaries, wages and salaries. If you want to spread that, because that's where the 90 million or so revenues, 70% of that is wages and salaries. So what does that leave? And the use to some of the things we do in streets and drains. So I mean, that's how I would answer it. Okay, it's, we haven't touched we haven't touched this number in a bunch of years. First time that I've thought about it. But bottom line, the delta's got to be closed. That helps to do that.
Right.
70% of that is related to wages and salaries, and the increase that we anticipate in hospitalization. What was that number? Those are big figures. We just got to stop the leaking as far as run out of fund balance or reserves, and that's how I would answer it.
Well, you'd noted if you had to answer that question, you're invited to the ward meeting to answer those questions.
I might need to be in South America.
I
think I'm invited to Colombia.
As will the new CAO, Mr. Weaver. Bless his heart. Welcome to Biloxi, Mr. Weaver. All right, that's all I have at this time. I may have some questions later, and I'm sorry to take so long, but thank you.
No.
Thank you, George.
Appreciate it, Mr. Tisdale, to be as thorough as you've been. This is a real critical topic. We go back to Mr. Marshall.
I guess the question first is, I'm trying to get a clear understanding. At 3 mil, we're just gonna use it for expenses?
Yeah, I mean, to close the gap of the expenses that you approve in by department. And again, 70% of that is related to our employees. The other thing, some of the projects that you have, ongoing, roads and bridges and things that we on the hook for, that's just part of the deal. Just like the revenue, you spread the revenues across all the expenses that you approve.
How much of that's gonna go towards investing into increasing our revenue?
$2 million. That's going to increase the revenue by $2 million, 2.1, 2.3 million.
Our future revenue, so we won't have to keep doing this. We're raising the tax, we're raising the cost.
That's right. No, you're raising taxes, which is
We're raising taxes, okay, to keep us from having to be back in the same position 5 years from now, 2 years from now.
well, we can debate that on the situation. Again, it was your wishes. Okay, we can do this. We can do it without doing this. But then the ability to deliver the services you're committed to do to your people, to the citizens, are going to eat into something. Okay, this is going to prevent that, from a rating situation. You've increased your revenues by that amount, but your services, when you look at police and fire and the numbers you have to have, the budget positions you have to have, and especially in fire, if you have 4, we're a rating number 2. And number 2 is the best in the state, and there's only one other one is a number 2. We want to go to number 1. Anybody who has insurance at number 1.
There's no set aside.
Let me finish my statement. This is, you got to deliver these services. We're committed to make it safe, friendly, and beautiful, and this is part of that ability to provide the services we're doing now, and even better services. And this is the cost to do it, at least for this 1 year. Now, there may be, and I do expect some things to happen that will increase revenues, not that revenue, that in 2 years or 3 years, we may be able to reduce it again. As things, there are certain debts that we're finishing, I think 28 and 29, that are millage, about 1 mil that you could reduce. You don't need that for debt service anymore. You can reduce the general fund millage. But that's not it. That's just revenue, not growing revenue. It's offsetting the expenses.
So the question is, we have to figure out a way to increase the revenue of the city without going back and raising the millage by investing through economic development in this city. What is your plan for that, is what I'm asking.
Well, there's not enough time to tell you what we're going to do as far as we're actually every day looking for new opportunities. We're looking to grow, a number of industries, primarily, the ones that are lowest on the radar is some of those opportunities in gaming that will draw, additional jobs that will increase those revenues and opportunities for homeowners, new homeowners that will generate revenue. Economic development is always a way to reduce taxes.
Okay. In East Biloxi, how much have you spent on infrastructure, drainage, sidewalks, streets, developing East Biloxi?
About $200 million.
About how much?
How much have we spent in East Biloxi since 2015? East Biloxi, the north contract and the contracts we're in, that's in East Biloxi. When I became mayor in 2015, we had 55 miles of streets torn up, and that north contract was $120 million?
North contract was $120 million.
Okay, what did St. Michael's 1 and 2?
The others are probably $20 million and 40, security well over $200 million, all infrastructure, road, drainage, sidewalks.
Would you say close to $250 million?
No, $200 million. $200 million is what we spent.
More. You think well over?
Yeah, the whole project, and we're still arguing with FEMA right now. This was estimated to be 14 different design areas, and that was estimated in 2008 without escalation, and that's why we're arguing with FEMA. But about $200 million was in, from Carver Street to the point.
Okay, that would be East Biloxi. Okay, so with that investment, $200 million, okay, wouldn't it make sense now to reinvest more into the area on top of the ground? Let me finish. So let's say a developer goes into a community, woods, we ride by it all the time. We look at an area and it's all woods. Nothing there, no streets, no roads. We don't pay any attention to it. Ride back the next week, the trees are gone. The grounds are clear. Right back a few weeks later, they're doing dirt roads. Right back a few more weeks later, you see the drainage going in. They're developing it. You've done all of that from Calvert all the way to the point. Okay? But if a developer stopped there and then go back and put anything on top of those lots, then he's losing money no matter if you put $200 million into it or not. He's actually starting to lose money because the whole goal is not to just put the roads, put the sewage pipes in, the drainage in. The whole goal was to develop the whole area.
Yeah, and you know, we had this meeting with SMPDD, and we're always investigating what was the project we had talked about, repopulate East Biloxi. All right,
Right.
Part of the development, getting people, look, you know, we can go over this all and you know, talk for hours and hours and hours. Of course, East Biloxi is the canvas to repopulate East Biloxi, and along with that will be increase in revenues related to the businesses that will come along. But, you know, this point is, you know, what are we going to do this year at this point, okay? Nobody can argue that economic development will reduce the tax burden that the citizens will have if we don't do it the right way.
So let me hear you say it again, okay? You are saying the same thing that I'm saying. Economic development will be the key to reducing the tax burden.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you got 1/5 of the whole city sitting there, waiting primed for economic development, which will reduce the impact and the cost of every citizen in this whole city.
We're on the same page. Like I said, we actually go after, we actually address every opportunity. We don't, you know, go across the country. We have not, you know, gotten anybody to do this 24 hours a day, but that's of course our goal. That's the biggest opportunity we have, to repopulate and to generate additional homeowners, residents, and the business will follow. But this is this is brand new streets.
So we're asking possibility of asking for $3 million to cover our everyday obligations, but nothing to invest in the area to decrease the cost of the citizens' living.
You don't understand what the deal. We do our economic development through community development and some of these other things. That's what we budgeted. That's the reason you need the revenue to offset the expenses for economic development, community development. Jerry Creel and his group, I can't tell you how many people have come in searching and understanding, can we do this? How can we help? Those are the kinds of things, economic development, that specifically on hotels and other businesses. But the easiest way to say, where can I build this? You know, what can I do? It's more straightforward in East Biloxi than it is anywhere else.
Okay.
But that's all part of the budgeted, way we go out and market and get that information.
Okay, we've discussed possibilities of organizing a vehicle for the purpose of, express purpose, not, I don't want to confuse economic development with community development, okay? We seem to be overlapping them, and that's not good. What we want to talk about is economic development, which is for the purpose of increasing the economy. Okay, I know it all kind of works together, but it's two different departments, it's two different things. But right now, we don't have our economic development.
I disagree.
Okay, tell me who that person is.
Well, it's multiple persons.
Names.
And we're open to anything that works.
Tell me who can I'll look at the budget, and I don't see anybody in here. Am I missing somebody whose purpose is economic development?
Grants and the ability to work with SMPDD, those folks, they bring things to the table too. Economic. Press the wrong button. Can you hear me? But I disagree. We'll go in to what we're doing and our ideas. Again, these are points that we agree with. How we best deliver, how we best prospect, and how we get this act together on generating more revenue. That's something. But this point, this $3 million that was talked about is to enable those functions.
But my question is, tell me where is it that I can see a department or a person or personnel whose sole purpose is to help in economic development of this city? What vehicle do you have in place now to justify the fact that we're finna ask them to pay money? Now, if we're gonna ask them to pay money, would it make sense to say, of that money that we're asking, we're gonna set aside this amount for the purpose of investing in order to lower your obligations in the future?
Well, and that's in the departments that we have. That's in the directorates we have. Economic development is in every department. Every department that looks for grants. Every department that manages things that are coming in, like the federal programs. That's in place. You know, and how, if we can improve it, we'll improve it.
So would you be anywhere near any portion of this going towards setting aside for the purpose of economic development in the field for the whole city that needs it?
That's in the departments that we're talking about. Certainly, you know, if you want to put if it's within your budget and say, okay, I need to put $120,000 in the person who does nothing but go across the country. We had a position before that was kind of related to the ball field. Okay. We don't have a specific purpose, that's 40 hours a day or even more than that. You know, if you want to add it to the budget, we can do that. But right now, we've been pretty successful over the last 10 years in growing, in growing our business.
So of this $3 million, is there can we say a specific amount set aside?
No, not to be specific.
So we just spend whatever it is. It could be 20 million. It could be 20. Whatever it is, you're just gonna spend it where you want to spend it.
It's going to be spent to offset the expenses that you've actually approved. That $3 million is the expense, give you the ability to expense the departments and the divisions that you approve and you hear about within.
So the solution to that would be to go from 3 mil to set aside another portion for that purpose.
Identify within each department or a department what you want or what you would think for just pure economic development or community development. That's the solution. That's going to be within the departments that you approve and the budget that you approve. That's the way to do this. But you know, again, specifically, right now is what we're asking that $2 million to help defer primarily, you know, the employees and the support of those employees for this FY year.
Gentlemen, I don't know if y'all are moving the tug of war here any. Y'all are asking the same question over and over again and answering it in the same manner.
Basically, I'm trying to, okay, we're saying the same thing, but I'm just asking, of this 3 mil that we're asking for, what percentage can we say to increase our revenue through economic development? Is there anything there?
None specifically none allocated of the $2 million for that. It's to support the departments that you approve and the budget that you approve.
Okay. With almost 1,000 lots in East Biloxi, nothing, putting property, vacant lots don't help. So economic development is what we're looking for, bringing businesses in. So in order to decrease the liability to each individual. So there's nothing, these funds don't do that at all.
No. The departments, the operational goals and missions of each department do that, not this village. If you want to change and allocate, the positions or a department for economic development, that's going to be part of the budget. If you want to create something to do that, would be part of the budget, but that's still part of the $90 million or so that we're talking about. So that's how that role and that component of economic development or community development can be done. But this is just to operate the 600 or so employees that we have.
Okay, so let me be clear. So you're saying that in order for us to get an economic development district, for the purpose of that 1/5 of the city that's primed and ready.
Not saying anything about the economic development district. I'm saying about the expenses that we need to do with FY26. That's what requires a balancing of the fund expenses and revenues for this fiscal year.
Would you be against the 3 mil just to operate, and maybe another mil for investment?
I would be against that because I don't think we can by law.
Why not?
Because you can't raise somebody's taxes more than 10% per year. And
Okay.
30 mills, 3 mills is 10% of 30 mills.
Okay, Ms. Sabine, how high can we go up? How many mills can we go up?
Yeah, I think the actual statute is 10% of previous ad valorem collected, and that's been, I think the lowest year we've had is around 43 million, so I'm not saying the mayor is not a good attorney, but I think the maximum number might be 4.3 mills. There's things that are supposed to be taken out and accounted for, so, but I think 4.3, 4.2 is a fair estimate of the maximum that could be done.
Matlock, that might be the case, but 3 is what I think is proper, and we can get confirmation of all that, what specifically the city of Biloxi can do based on what we've done, and taking into consideration too that school districts went up from 43 point something to 44 point something. Now they're going to go up another mill. So the whole burden rate to a taxpayer, a resident, will be 3 plus from us and 1 more from them. So that's 4 mills there. I think that would be a position that it would be prudent, from a political standpoint, or a way that eventually, as we develop economically and things assess value goes up, we can point the reduction in millage. And I think that over the course of time, before this is BFF, before FOFO, we went down to 30 mills based on 38 at one point in time, as in the 90s, 98, something like that.
Yeah, I think, even when casinos came in from 91 to 94, the mills were still at 56 mills. And around 95, 96, they started decreasing them, probably about the time Beau Rivage got here. So by 1997, they were down to 30.10, which is where they've remained.
And again, let me reiterate. I think this is a 1-year play, that if we're successful in we have identified some of the opportunities to generate more revenue from another direction, maybe some diversions and some of these other things that be coming along. But also, keep in mind, we just approved a gaming site for $700 million. But that will roll in, in 2 or 3 years. And there's a number of other things that will happen. I think the growth, like you said, increasing the revenue is the way to reduce the tax millage. And I do believe that in 3 years, 3 years from now, we'll be in a better position, because I know we got some debt service rolling off too. So that's a mill that we wouldn't have to collect for the general fund.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I firmly, yes, I'm going off a little bit, I got to let him answer. But let me get back to my point is, okay, if we're not going to invest anything into economic development, but we're just going to be spending the money to cover the cost, let me finish, man. We're going back in the same spot over and over again. Okay, so the point is, when we sit there, even operate.
No, let me finish.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Larry.
No, so what would be your suggestion at this point? Put another mill on it? And what do you do with it? You got to redesign. What are you going to do with that $700,000? What would you propose doing with that additional $700,000 in this budget? That's the question. I think that's, we're going, we want, of course we want to do that, but that would require something that's not in this budget now in order to increase our possibilities of revenue. But that would be, resulting in 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, with new revenues and new economic development. And some of the projects we talked about. If you're saying, what we're talking about, repopulate, East Biloxi. And that may require putting, another person and a half to do those kinds of things, full time, right? And so that would be within the existing budgetary structure. That's the kind of thing that's on the radar. I mean, that's doable. That's economic, economic development. But that would be a goal of this particular person within the city of Biloxi. That's some of the things that we would be positioned to do. But to say this mill is dedicated, you know, I don't think it would be wise to say we put two people related to economic development as a result of this millage increase. But those kinds of things, you know, we've already talked about with this MPDE. You know, we may have some internal folks that we got to do in order to respond, and that may be their full-time mission is to make sure this effort is successful. Or we'd have to hire people on a contractual basis, you know, to work on that. That's all part of that revenue, so we can actually, you know, prospect.
Okay, so we're raising the millage to pay taxes on people that we already got hired, we can't afford to hire. But we're not gonna do anything to help to invest to hire people. When you invest in hire people, you have the money there to pay the people. Right now, you don't have the money to pay the people. But you're not willing to invest. If I'm operating a business, before I start thinking about just raising the prices of everything across the board, I have to set aside a plan to say, hey, I'm just not gonna keep raising prices because I keep spending money. I gotta figure out a way to expand my sales, my volume, or bring my income in by direct investing. And so companies do it all the time. That's what we're doing. We got companies that come in, like you just said, you talk to companies and when they come in, they're investing when they come in here for the purpose of increasing their income. They're not just raising money to pay for their bills or to keep their employees paid. They're thinking about the future. What we're asking for is, if you got 1/5 of your cities waiting to be developed, now's the time to invest into it. You can't invest to it with a promise. We've already had promises. We need action. This is the budget for that. If you're gonna charge the citizens, that $20 extra per house per year to fill up the lots over in East Biloxi, to bring the development in East Biloxi, which is already ready. They spent almost $250 million getting ready. Let's finish that job. That's where it needs to go.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think the points are well made. We need to give the other council members a little bit of time, and if we have some, we'll come back to you. Is that okay, Mr. Marshall? Mr. Gray?
How was this 3% affect, these 3 mills going to affect the businesses that's in Biloxi?
It'd probably be a little bit more, probably $80 per year if you had a $200,000 building. The arithmetic on a homeowner, if you had a $200,000 house, okay, your assessed value, which you apply the millage to, assessed value of a $200,000 house, the assessed value of a $200,000 true value house would be $20,000, okay? That's 10% of the true value. On a commercial business, that would be 15% of that. But on the arithmetic there, 0.003 is 3 mills times 20,000, which is $60 per year, $5 per month. On a short-term rental, that would be more than that, probably 30,000 on a $200,000 house, right? Then do the millage, so that would be $90 a year.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right. Mr. Shoemaker, do you have, I know you've been listening in. Do you have anything?
Yes, sir. I'll try to make it quick. I know what I'm going to say, some of y'all have already spoken about, but I just want to say last year at this time, I probably would have supported a millage increase. This year, I'm not so sure. I think we can find some other areas to cut, hopefully not putting burden on the citizens of Biloxi. But everything's expensive, still expensive. And I know when you break it down, the numbers, it may be $80, $90 a year. You break that down per month, it's not that much. However, that being said, it is a burden. Insurance costs are still high, houses. And I just think if you look at some things, Shucker Stadium, I don't know if there's anything we could ever do with that. That's a money pit. We're losing a lot of money, not making anybody, it seems like, on that. The 3rd floor of the federal building, maybe we do think about moving that to the city building. And y'all, I apologize for the noise behind me. I'm trying to get to a quiet place. But water, sewer, and port department, if we're losing money and they're not holding their own when it comes to the budget, maybe we need to rethink that. Maybe this is something we can do this year, but it's something we probably need to think about. Engineering and public works, maybe that's something we need to look at. That just one director saves an amount of money just in that. And I'll end it with this. It seems like we spend a lot of money contracting out jobs that we could do in-house. I don't know what the numbers are, but if we did more jobs maybe in-house throughout the year, that would save itself a chunk of money. I just think right now, if we look, and I know we've kind of waited, I guess, to the last hour, so to speak, but I think we can hopefully we can find some other areas to make those cuts without having to raise them. And that's all I have, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemaker. I'd like to remind the council that this meeting was called, the resolution, or the suggestion was made by Mr. Tisdale to consider giving the mayor authorization to advertise up to a certain millage point. Are there any other final points that anybody can make in a couple of minutes?
So, real quick, just listening throughout Paul and everyone's testimony here, Christie, can somebody give me a definition of what exactly defines a capital project? Not a capital expense, a capital project. Because I know when you spend X amount of dollars for a vehicle, so to speak, that's a capital expense. But what would define a capital project? Is there a monetary amount?
Project. You get that. Let's just say in your neighborhood, you've had some drainage issues, and it's typically $300,000 or $400,000.
Okay.
To do that, before we do that, we give that a capital project number, and then we allocate money from either a grant or sometimes from the general fund, sometimes from ARPA funds, wherever, and we will fund that capital project.
Okay, so based on Mr. Tisdale's testimony here, I think it was said that there's no proposed new capital projects within the fiscal year 2026 budget currently.
Yeah.
Right. However, we each just submitted 2 capital projects that we were wishing for in our wards. With this proposed increase, even with this proposed increase, there's no new capital projects for 2026. So I guess my point is we eventually have to stop the bleeding, and I think if we can do that and then revisit this, I know we're at a time deadline, but I think we've known this deadline for more than 3 days now. So it's just difficult for me to put my arms around when we got no new capital projects being proposed, but yet we're proposing a tax increase. And not to mention, I know it's $10 per thousand on residential, $15 per 100,000 on commercial. However, you look at a small casino property like Boomtown, who is probably the lesser of the market, owned by a corporation, you start levying more dollars on them, that corporation may look at it and say, it's no longer profitable. And then we got to look at the long-term effects of this $3 million rather than the influx of what we would receive in the short term. So that's just my 2 cents there. Not to mention with the increase of escrow for the resident, your homeowner's insurance just increased 3 times as well. So your escrow is only going up $60, but it just went up 3 times as much for homeowners.
Thank you, Councilman. Your time has expired. Mr. Tisdale.
I didn't know we had a time limit.
Mr. Tisdale, 2 minutes.
Sure. So suppose there's no millage increase forthcoming. How do we close that delta? What services will be reduced? What's the impact on the homeowners here?
Well, if you do
Paint the picture as accurately as you can so we understand the impact.
services, or you go into fund balance. So that $12 million fund balance would look like $10 million going into the room. That's, if you don't do this, then that's where it comes from. If you provide the services that you want in this budget. You'll use some of that fund balance to fund this proposed. If this budget is skinny down, I'm talking about the expense side, to where this is the bottom line of what we got to do, then it only goes in one place, out of the cash and the fund balance you have.
All right, and you're asking for the increase, so you're reluctant to lower that fund balance. correct?
Well, that's proven.
Okay, so what, all right, so what's the significance of keeping the fund balance where it is?
That's a matter of opinion. To me,
Well, here's
in business, okay?
Yeah, what's your opinion?
It's not tremendously significant to me, but there are, things that are considered, like rating of municipal government. Business is easy. Everything's related to bottom line. Revenues and expenses, one impacts the bottom line. You have capital items or assets that you can leverage in order to be where we are, to do the things you do. You got to, generate revenue is the whole idea, or reduce expenses, which actually goes to bottom line, but we're not in that mode. I don't think there's a tremendous amount of harm in what we just, the latter of what we talked about. The $2 million is not really significant to me. It wouldn't bother me too much, okay?
So what I'm
If we do nothing, you're going to go into fund balance to do the job. We're skinny in this budget in every way you can imagine. The bond rating may suffer a little bit.
Well, tell me about that. I mean, that's what's in the back of my mind. I figure that's the.
Well, unrestricted fund balance is always a consideration of rating.
Financial health, yeah.
Right, but go ahead, Mr. Abad.
Yeah, I mean, before we do any bond, we're subjected to 3 or 4 ratings calls, and S&P looks at the audits and looks at the financial position of the city, and they're always focusing on how much unrestricted cash is on hand in case something goes wrong. What's your, like the 3-month ability to operate for 3 months without any revenue. So at some point, if it's got to a certain level, I mean, they will still lend you money, but the interest rate's going to be higher. So it's like, just like anything, people with better credit get a better interest rate.
So the unrestricted cash on hand then,
No, fund balance is unrestricted and cash is cash.
so what is that? Okay, so I'm talking about what the bond companies are going to look at. What's that total? What's the number that,
Million is important.
okay, so 26 million, but we're not talking about that 26 million, we're just talking
No,
about.
it is. We are talking about that because it looks across all 30 funds.
All right, that includes the 12 million?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be reduced, that 26 to 24 million, if we did nothing and that $2 million came out of the general fund. That would reduce that 26 million to 24 million. Does that make any appreciable difference in the bond companies looking if we're?
Again, those questions need to be to Jane and to me, I wouldn't think so. What does I have below him? Total I have below him is 40-something million.
43.
And 2 million and 43, is what we're talking about raising. Out of the 43 through a fund balance, that's 2 million more. I don't know that that would be significant from a bond rating.
Okay, and that was that basically was my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tisdale. Can we wrap it up with Mr. Marshall? And I got some final comments.
I can go after you.
No, go ahead.
I don't mind. I can go after
close.
you.
I'll close.
You gonna?
Yep.
Why you always get the close?
Excuse me?
Why you always get the close? I mean, I want to close sometime too.
Because he's a president.
Anyway, Mr. Mayor, how many projects do we have that are on the books that are unfunded? I mean, we got a project, but there's no money for it.
No, all our projects, all capital projects are funded, sourced and funded. 40-something, where's Rachel? 40-something projects? About 36 that are funded and are, I can't remember each one of them, but all the projects have a source, maybe multiple sources, like, the state puts some money in, the Go Mesa might be put some money in ARPA, fund balance, general fund, all of them are sourced, and I think they have provided you, the ones that are in active fund balance, active capital projects, there's a spreadsheet so you can see how much has been done, how much was originally budgeted, and how much of each source is part of that budget.
Okay, one of which is in East Biloxi is the recreation center. Where's the money? It's funded, but you're saying that
Money's in those accounts that's set. I mean, you gotta get.
it's like $3,000 in that account, and there's no recreation center there.
The engineering was funded, but full project not been funded?
The engineering of the project is a big part of it, and that has the rest of the project. Which project are you talking about?
The least.
East Biloxi Recreation Center.
Oh, yeah. The engineering has been done, and there was about 200,000 or 300,000 that are sitting somewhere in fund balance for East Biloxi Community Center. I'm not sure, but the engineering has been done, and it's almost ready to bid. You got to have the complete source in order to, I guess we need to revisit the engineering as far as site, and then go forward with that.
So we have a project that, $3 million project,
Right, it was $3 million, and to tell them what it is right now.
and we got less than how much in it left?
No, we just funded 50-something thousand for the engineering, wasn't it? Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know, we can visit that.
So okay. So where are you gonna get the money for that, though? It's a project, it's an active project. Where's the money coming from? Is it gonna be in this bond that you're doing?
Could be.
Is that enough?
Okay, no.
Well,
Okay, we have an active project. You just said all the projects are funded. You just said, no, sir. You just said they're all funded. My understanding is this. There was $500,000 put in that project.
I think there was, it's somewhere.
Okay.
Use the engineering part of that.
$218,000, okay? We took out, I believe it was $10,000 for, it was transferred from there for the park, Henry Beck Park. $25,000 was transferred for the fence over at Bush Park. I think it was $25,000 was transferred from their project for the park at the end of the, what's the name of the park at the end of by Oak Street down at Division Street? Okay, for that part. You did some railroad work on the corner across the Main Street. You took $125,000 out of the project. That depleted down to about $3,000, but yet it's a funded project. Where's the money coming from?
The project is not fully funded for construction at this point. You got to have a fully committed amount of money dedicated in the budget, and that's usually you do that, the engineering get an opinion of probable cost in order to go forward.
So we have a project that started at $3 million. Now we know it's gonna cost $4 million probably.
Yeah,
And we have done it, we
We got to look for the opportunities to fund that $4 million. We don't have that funded identified yet.
So will this be in this bond that you're talking about?
Could be. But, you're going to have to approve, whatever project would be.
I'm not gonna get anywhere.
Mr. Tisdale, you got any thoughts? Mr. Creel stepped out of the room. He had to take a call, but he'll be right back.
No, I'll wait for your comments, and then if you need a motion, after all this, I'm happy to offer a motion.
Mr. Gray, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, on this non-departmental, I mean, is there anything we can cut? I mean, some of these are growing. I mean, they're asking for, over the last few years, over $100,000. I mean, they just keep growing and growing.
Absolutely. And, Mr. President, we talked a little bit of possibilities, who needs what and where. That's $2 million right there. That's where the $3 million came from. Hey, let's do that. That would fund everything there. It's not necessary that you do that. Kenny, the president said, can you live with $375 versus $395? Sure, it's anything. That's all on the table. It's up to you to designate where these things are.
Right, I mean, I know we like to fund as much as we can, but some of the stuff is just growing too fast, and I mean, at some point, we got to close the checkbook.
It's strong, and it's been there for the last 4 years at about $2 million.
Right.
So anything's on the table. These are extraordinary times. I think this year is extraordinary. And Diana will back us up. We've increased expenses over the last 3 years by 30%. And now's the time to address it. By getting a little bit more revenue, or getting, identifying opportunities to shed some property and put some things back on the tax roll, which I think, will happen, as well as maybe some of the additional revenue, but it won't be from, after the legislative session. They may put us in a mode to kick around some additional revenue sources.
Right. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Wayne. Gentlemen, I'll try to wrap us up here. I mean, great points. Everybody's trying to make some great points, a lot of friction in the room because, you know, that's where we are. You know, we got to have the friction to kind of move the train here, and, you know, we'll see how far we can get. So the purpose of this meeting, again, I just want to restate, was to give the mayor consideration of giving the mayor authorization to advertise a potential millage increase. There's still some work, and some of the points I want to allude to. Me and Rick have agreed to meet as rapidly this week to go through all the departments to make some changes, including the non-departmental, bring that back in a form for you before our next meeting so y'all can take a look at it. I'm hopeful we can trim a significant amount. I'm not going to tie us down to an amount today. But I'm looking forward to that meeting with Mr. Weaver so that we can make some headway. We have reviewed these budgets. It's difficult when you go through the review process and where you're going to make the changes. We got 7 different opinions up here. Okay, so I'm going to try to get with Mr. Weaver, put our heads together, make some recommendations, bring it back to the full council, let y'all look at it. You can still make adjustments at that time. Anyone can make adjustments. If we get a consensus, we can move forward. That's separate from what we've been debating and considering. I'd like to note that our millage is some of the lowest on the coast.
Not some,
The lowest on the coast. 115, is that where we're at? 114, 111? 111 is our mills when you got other cities that are 135, 144, you know, and so forth. So the public is going to want to know where you're going to spend that at, and I've heard that from a lot of us up here. And but again, this is just to give the mayor authority to advertise. Once that is done, there's a public meeting and workshop on it, and then it would come to the council for approval at that point. So. We've been here a while today to debate giving the mayor authority to advertise. I'd like to call for the question and take each vote verbally, starting with Mr. Gray. Oh, I'm sorry. I make a motion that, well, Mr. Tisdale wanted to make that motion, I think, so I'll give him the privilege.
Thank you, I think.
You're welcome.
So, and all we're doing is authorizing the advertisement for the proposed or consideration for a millage increase. Do we need, Peter, do we need to put a millage figure in there?
Yeah,
not to exceed, or?
Well, the statute just says generically, the city plans to increase by, and they just have the millage number. Is the way it reads. But that's before the public hearing. So after the public hearing and the adoption, it can be 0, 1, 2, 3, it can be anything you want. But I think, you know, I think from what we're talking about is clearly not to exceed that, but, you know, if you change one word in the way that statute reads, it gives somebody a opportunity to say it wasn't done perfectly according to statute. So I think it would say something to the effect of, we plan to have a 3 mill, propose an additional 3 mills. But it's, of course, subject to final approval of the budget and whatever that number is.
Sure, it could be less, whatever that figure is, but that's what the mayor's preference is for 3 mills.
Yeah, I think we just say 3 mills and advertise according to statute would be the proper way to say it.
All right, I'll make that motion. Did you get the verbiage? Okay, all right. Thank you. So that's not to, no, say that again, Peter, so we all understand here.
The city plans to propose a 3 mill increase, and then we have the before, which is the 30.1. It says this will increase the mills to 33.1.
Okay. All right, Gary, you got that? All right, so I'll make that motion.
All right, there's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, seconded by Mr. Gray. Discussion.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what the attorney said. So we're going to advertise, if this is approved by the council, we'll advertise for a millage increase of 3 mills, and then what that specific figure would be. Following that, that'll be advertised. We'll have a public hearing on the budget, which gives the public an opportunity to come and comment. Again, it's not a question and answer, it's just come in and comment on the budget. And then a week after that, at the September 9th meeting, at that point, we can approve whatever millage we desire as a council. Could be 0 mills, could be up to 3 mills. So we're not locked into anything yet. The public has an opportunity to be heard. That's kind of where we are.
So, Mr. Tisdale, as I understand, so public input would include, like, Mr. Marshall's concerns about his idea of taking some of that millage and seeing if it's legal or if it can be used for an economic foundation or something like that. It could be discussed at that time.
He could, and of course, you'll be managing the meeting, so.
All right, just wanted to clarify that. Okay, Mr. Gray, you're up next.
No, I mean, we have to run this in the paper, whether we got 0 mills or 3 mills.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got to go ahead and approve it, and let's move on.
All right, Mr. Marshall, any comments?
Yeah, as I said before, if you set on the 3 mill, only thing I was asking is that we consider just raising the mill. If by chance during all the discussions, we just lowered it back down, you would do that. But at least leave it on, if no use to having discussion about the economic district funding, if it's not, there's no money there anyway. If it's there as a possibility, you decide not to do it, you can always lower it back down to 3 and walk away from it. But as far as asking that the motion really should be for the 4. That way at least the 1 mill be there as an option. But right now, no, I don't see any positive in this.
If I understood the motion, council, even though we're advertising for 3 by statute, we could, in these meetings, could you exceed that, or are you restricted at the 3?
It could go, I'm gonna say up to
whatever the limit is.
we'll say 4.2 is a good guess, but I mean, that would have to be an amendment to the previous motion.
Let me say this. I'm hooked on 3.
All right, all right.
So
Mr. Marshall, you still have the floor.
Why don't we just, I'd just rather see it in the First Amendment and we're lower. People feel bad about if you have to lower it. But at least let's talk it through. No use trying to talk it through to get something when we can just go on, and that's my problem with it. It needs to be in this vote right here. And he can argue what he wants, bring it down and explain to it, and I can do mine. But at least it'd be on the table.
Yeah, I don't know if we have the ability to make that happen. You can make an amendment if you want, propose an amendment to the motion. But before you do that, let's allow discussion and come back to an amendment, if you don't mind. Okay. Mr. Nair? You're good? All right, Mr. Creel.
This discussion.
Discussion.
No discussion.
Mr. Shoemaker? No discussion. Mr. Marshall?
I'll make the amendment that we do the 4%, then we decide in our discussions afterwards, we want to lower down to the 3, we'll do that.
All right. Did you understand that? Lower it down to what?
If we max it out at the 4, and if we decide to lower it to 3, that would be the amendment. Okay, let's do that.
Okay. So read the amendment. What's the amendment say? You're making an amendment to do exactly what? Lower it to 3?
I'll make an amendment to raise the motion to 4%, and then during after to be advertised at the most of 4%.
Gotcha.
And we'll settle on the final number.
I'm clear. If I understand the motion, the amendment, Mr. Marshall is making an amendment to raise the number to 3%?
No.
I mean, to 4% from 3%. Is there a second? 4 mills, excuse me. I'm staying corrected. From 3 mills to 4 mills. Not an amendment, that was a motion, and this is an amendment to the motion to raise it from 3 mills to 4 mills.
To raise the motion to 4 mil.
Okay, is there a second? Excuse me, I got it. Is there a second? There being no second, the amendment to the motion fails. All right, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion by Mr. Tisdale. Mr. Gray?
Gray, yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Abstain.
All right, Mr. Nail?
Yes.
Mr. Creel?
Creel, no.
Tisdale, yes. Tisdale, yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Shoemaker, no.
And Glavin is no. So the motion passes 3-2 and 1 abstained.
No.
Right?
No.
No, the other way, it fails.
I'm sorry, fails.
Fails 3-2.
3-2.
1 abstain?
We had a yay, right? You were yes. We had a yes. We had 2 noes, or 3 noes. So it's 3-3-1. So it fails for lack of a majority?
Correct.
3-3-1. 3-3-1. Did you need do you need the votes?
One more time.
All right, one more time. Mr. Gray, what was your vote?
Gray, yes.
Mr. Marshall, your vote?
Marshall, abstain.
All right, Mr. Nail, your vote?
Yes.
Mr. Creel?
Creel, no.
Mr. Tisdale?
Tisdale's a yes.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Shoemaker, no.
Glavin is no. All right, we entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Creel.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Second by Mr. Gray. Any discussion? There being none, Mr. Gray?
Gray, yes.
Mr. Marshall? Abstain?
We're voting to
Adjourn.
To adjourn, we'll go on.
Marshall, yes.
Okay. Mr. Nail? All right, Mr. Creel?
Creel, yes.
Mr. Tisdale?
Tisdale,
Mr.
yes.
Shoemaker?
Shoemaker, yes.
And Glavin is yes.